Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at Etrailer, and today we're taking a look at the Curt fifth wheel adapter rails for OEM prep packages. Now here we have it today on our Ford, but it's also going to adapt to GMC as well as Chevys with OEM prep packages. This is a fantastic option for any of you that have maybe had a previous truck that you towed with a fifth wheel and you've moved to something with an OEM prep package that's a Ford, GMC, or Chevy. And the OEM puck systems are really, really nice. I think it's great that they're now prepped from the factory to be able to drop these in, but that leaves you with a situation where you may have a fifth wheel that was in ISR rails and, well, you want to be able to use those new adapting spots, and this is the rail to do it. This adapter rail simply just has the attachment points for the factory puck systems with handles that will latch in place, and that's going to mount that to the bed, and that creates ISR rails. So if you previously had rail system on your truck to drop in that fifth wheel, this is just going to recreate that for you with the attachment points on the OEM puck packages. So being that it's an ISR standard rail, that's going to work with just about every fifth wheel. There are going to be a few exceptions. Now, the two fifth wheels that are noted by Curt that aren't going to work with this due to clearance issues are going to be the Husky sliders as well as the B&W Patriot slider. But other than that, being that these are ISR standard rails, more than likely the fifth wheel that you previously had is going to work with this. Now, mentioning that this is working with Fords, GMCs, and Chevys, you're probably wondering how is that the case, because their puck systems are slightly different. And here in our Ford configuration, we have the handles on the inside. So that just really accounts for the holes in our rails. If you have a Chevy GMC, the only difference is this would go to the other side and you swap it to where the handles are on the outside. But other than that, it's going to work with either make. So that's really nice that, if you're going to maybe a Ford or a Chevy later on with OEM prep, you can take this along with you and you can still use that fifth wheel that you previously had. So really opens up to what you can do with that OEM prep package and really save you time and money in the long run. Now, this rail kit is also what would be included if you do pick up a Curt fifth wheel hitch that is for OEM prep. A lot of times, if they're not using arms that have the OEM prep handles in place, you're going to be using this adapter rail. But it's a great way to still get that fifth wheel in place, and it also has decent capacities. This rail kit is designed to really account for a lot of the weight capacities as well. Some of the heavier, higher duty 30Ks aren't really going to be something that you're going to want to use with this. This is rated at 25,000 pounds. Any of those 25,000 pound capacity fifth wheels will work with this just fine. And your vertical load limit or the downward pressure that's put on the top of that from the kingpin is going to come in at 6250. So still heavy duty, and it should match up pretty well with a lot of those fifth wheels. With this adapter, I will say something that you may have to do is adjust the height that you previously had. If you're going to a different truck, more than likely you're going to want to adjust that anyway to get your camper or your trailer as level as possible. This adapter plate is going to add 2.5 inches just as a base, so something to think about. If you previously had it all perfectly dialed in, adding that 2.5 inches, you might want to have to lower that down to account for it. And that's also maybe a concern too. If you do have a fifth wheel that's all the way raised up, this may get a little bit tight with a tonneau cover. But again, it's 2.5 inches where normally your rails are about 1 inch. So, you're adding a little bit more, but that might get a little tight with the tonneau. Other than that, shouldn't be too big of a concern. Assembly of the adapter rail is super easy. You just have some carriage bolts and some flange nuts here that you just tighten up, again, according to if you have a Ford or that GMC Chevy. But other than that, it's pretty simple. It's got a black powder coat finish that's carbide, so it's going to hold up really well, especially as you're dropping fifth wheels in. It can normally scratch that powder coat, and that becomes a spot where potential rust and corrosions occur. But the powder coat finish on this is really tough, and I think it looks really good overall. So really, I don't worry too much, especially if you do have a tonneau cover and you keep it covered. This is going to look great throughout the lifespan. Now, as far as the OEM prep packages, it's going to be very similar to all the different makes of how they attach, but just let's take a look at it. You have these two handles that are going to be a quarter turn. There's a linch pin that will go through the handles and a tab that's welded on here. So that way you know for sure they're engaged. And if you want to get this out, you just quarter turn these out We'll do it on the other side as well. And then from here, you can lift that rail kit out. And you can adjust these locking arms. That way you can account for any of the inconsistencies or tolerances that are going to be different on your OEM preps. A lot of times, especially if they're brand new, they're going to have buildup of powder coat and they may be a little bit tight, and that's totally fine. You can see we have some play. That's kind of what you want. But if you want to make sure that it's not too sloppy or not too tight, it's going to be as simple as pulling out a cotter pin, adjusting your castle nut. You can kind of do one segment at a time, and then just testing to see how it feels and get it consistent across the board. So maybe after you tow it quite a bit and it's kind of loosen those tolerances up, you could always adjust this a little bit. But generally, once you get it set and everything feels good, it's only going to just drop in and latch up that much easier. And having that adjustability is really nice too, because you know, even with this latch down, there could be some little bit of movement here and there on this, just again with a little bit of tolerances, and that can make a little bit of noise, a little chucking action. So tightening those down to where it really cinches tight, you know, long term, that's probably going to be the best option. But there's really no perfect way to get these dialed in. It really comes down to setting it up in your truck and just kind of playing around with that cotter pin and castle nut until you get it exactly where you want. So now that we've kind of taken a look at the adapter kit, it's pretty straightforward, should make sense. And if you are looking to take your previous fifth wheel from your previous truck and get this all set up to be OEM prepped, this is definitely the way that I would do it. So hopefully this helps you get your fifth wheel into your new OEM prep truck and get you back on the road.